The idea that you need to dole it out, that if I told you, you might not understand. I'm coming from a place of complexity that you can't understand. You'll just have to trust me. I think is very insulting to people, and it's anti-democratic. That's just the fact. The premise of democracy as we understand it, as it was formed in this country in the late 18th century, was that the farmer, the worker, and the lawyer were all citizens in the same measure. Now, granted, there would be a natural pecking order that might, pecking order in terms of certain skill sets that would emerge, but in the public space, no one was inherently better or in a place to tell someone else what they need to know and how they need to live. It's one of the great things about this country. And there seems to be now among this, what I call the credentialed class, there seems to be an attitude that says, yeah, I'll be polite to people. I'll be polite in a basic social sense. But in my heart, I know that that poor person really doesn't know what's good for him or herself. After all, I have nice degrees. I went to the right schools. You know, I've really thought a lot more about things than other people have. And that is very irksome to me, but it's something I feel and see around us. And if you watch carefully our credentialed elites, that oozes out of them. And I think it's incredibly paradoxical that those who knew better than us got everything wrong. And that it was often people who live in a more direct physical world who were using their inherent observational skills as to how dangerous this really was, who got it right for the most part, and were able to look past the hysteria that seems to have been induced and get it right. And then the smart people who were quite strident in telling us to get on or be declared an idiot got it wrong. And I think that gets to a really interesting question as to how much our intellectual class has turned into a sort of self-referential hothouse, where we all do each other's favors. We say, well, you're in the club now, you know, you have your degree, you're of the good people. I mean, you know what the good things are, you know what quality is. And how can we nudge these other people who obviously don't have inputs the way we do? What never comes up is that the world of inputs and the way of becoming intelligent in the world is multiple. And physical, learning to listen to your body and the whole series of experiences that you have is very important.
One of the themes that really comes out in the book for me, you seem to have a deep concern with the dehumanization of people, you know, based on identity, based on medical status, which I suppose is the same. And this seems to have become, it's just not something that I really wholly expected in this society. And I probably were in the same boat here. But somehow we saw it manifested. And, you know, even at the highest echelons of power, people felt comfortable to dehumanize others.
Yes. This is, I think you're right, at the basis of so much of what I write about. And it gets into very fundamental, what I would argue are fundamental issues, because if you're talking about dehumanization, you have to ask the question, what does it mean to be human? And then it begs you to go into the history of what it has meant to be human and what people have said it means to be human, and how we humans are different and how we flourish, and when do we feel we are flourishing. And there's a word that I always tag along with it, is dignity. A very difficult word to define, but one that when you say it and you reflect upon it, a person knows whether they've felt they're in a state of dignity vis-a-vis the world. And I agree with what you said. So much of it there seems to be a flippancy about the dignity of others. Oh, vaccine injured people. Oh, well, we'll censor them, keep them out of the limelight. But what about the suffering they're going through? What about the people who lost jobs on what turned out to be a vaccine that couldn't have any social function because it didn't stop infection? And this was known. Where's the dignity in the people that had to suffer from that? And where's the apology to those that had to suffer on the basis of this know-it-allism that turned out to be completely wrong? It's amazing to me. If nothing else, for your own, one would think, your own moral sanity, you'd feel a need to repair, or at least say that I was wrong, or we were wrong, and we got things wrong. But what's so striking to me is it seems to be that it's doubled down. We're not going to talk about it. We're going to pretend it didn't happen. On we go. Oh yeah, there was a few things that happened then, but we're not going to talk about that. But I don't think this is new in American culture. And this is something I've written about recently. We have been trained to become good forgetters. Whatever you think about the wars initially in the Middle East, the facts are pretty clear. We destroyed a country called Iraq for no terribly good reason. We largely destroyed Libya for no good reason, that at least publicly has been divulged. I think there may be private reasons why, and I think in the case of Iraq as well. And you could argue in Syria as well, depending on how you look at the insurgent groups in that place. Have we had a national conversation about the destruction that we inflicted upon the Iraqi people, and then kind of just said, oh, well, sorry, didn't work, bye. And so if you can do that, what's a few vaccine-injured people? if you can go in on false pretenses, destroy a country, lead to the destruction of one of the most ancient cultures on earth, and then pretend it was a mistake and make a few light words, maybe at the highest levels, and say, oh, it was a mistake. Well, we didn't have those weapons after all. Oh, well, dead Iraqis, destroyed country. So that's
and dead Americans.
And dead Americans who were put up to this task on false pretenses. And so you begin to ask, and this is where I go back and forth, were we ever able to atone? Was atonement ever a part of public life? Or was it always this way? And I guess I wanted to believe, and have wanted to believe in my life, that atonement is possible even in public life. You know, we have these atonements 75 years later to the Japanese who were interned, or we have the atonement for the bomb in Japan 75 years later. That's the easy stuff. How about the duty of repair to all who were brought into these things and whose lives were shattered on false pretenses? This is serious stuff. And what I don't understand is how the elite class that made this happen through the collaboration of our media and government think they're going to put the rage, the subterranean rage, if you want to call it, that is clearly out there. Do they think that they can suppress it into non-existence? And it seems they think they can. It seems that they think with just perfecting censorship, which they call weeding out misinformation and disinformation, they can disappear these things. And they're getting frighteningly good at doing so. But people know, if they trust themselves, what has happened to them.